Week one college football recap reaction and the absolute real. We had the SEC versus the Big Ten versus the ACC versus the Big 12. Which of the conferences look the best right now, and how many playoff spots should they get? We got to talk about all of that. I got to give you my five best and my five worst teams of the weekend, and some of them you might be shocked at who makes that list. We got to talk about Texas versus Ohio State, Alabama, FSU, Clemson, LSU, and I have to give you my fast break as well, where I talk about the games of the teams that matter the most that you did not watch that I watched for you. This is why you come to Unafraid Show. I'm George Wrighster, former NFL player, college football analyst on CW, here on the Unafraid Show, George Wrighster's College Football Podcast, and elsewhere. Make sure that you like, subscribe, get notifications, and tell a friend about the show. And make sure that you be one of us. So, the excitement of college football. We have anticipated this for months, since the morning when the season was over with, the grieving, the mourning, the sadness. Now you get a chance to every what? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There's football damn near every single day. It was finally here, and we got exactly what we wanted. We got upsets, we got close games, we got meaningful games, we got conference games, we got everything in between. So let's start with number one. Who is the best conference right now? Because this weekend just showed, and last weekend as well, and then next weekend just show exactly why we need more of these non-conference games. So the SEC, it started out 4-2 versus non-conference play. They got 3 wins versus the ACC, and then a win versus the Big 12, and they lost versus the ACC, and they also lost versus the Big Ten. The ACC started out 2-3, wins versus the SEC and the Big 12, and then losses to the SEC times three. The Big Ten 2-1, wins versus the SEC and versus the Big 12, and then they lost the game versus the Big 12 as well. And then the Big 12 was 1-3. So we had huge games. We had Nebraska, Cincinnati, Auburn, Baylor, Ohio State, Texas, Tennessee, Syracuse, Florida State, Alabama, the LSU, Clemson. And this is why you come to the Unafraid Show, because we had the breakdowns for you and we told you what was going to happen in damn near every single one of these games. And if you had listened, then you would know what was what. But we are going to also talk about how quarterback injuries have highlighted the need for depth, and we'll get into that a little bit later. And with ESPN's broken FPI, because this thing is damn ridiculous. It is ridiculous the way that we are trying to set being sold a bill of goods by ESPN, by the SEC, in terms of this is a great metric to determine strength of schedule and everything else. It is broken. They know it's broken. They refuse to change it. Can't figure out why, but there is a reason why they figure out why they don't want to change it. We'll talk about that in a minute. But let's start with the game, not the biggest game of the weekend, which was Texas versus Ohio State, the most anticipated game. We're going to talk about Alabama versus FSU, which was a 31-17 game. And the reason why this game mattered so much is because Thomas Castellanos talked all of that ish in the offseason. And then him and his team turned around and backed it up. Because remember, he said, oh, nobody's afraid of Alabama anymore. Nobody, now that Nick Saban is gone, this team is not the same, and everything in between. And you know what they went out and did? They went out and physically dominated Alabama. When was the last time that you saw Alabama, outside of the national championship game versus Clemson, get manhandled? Get manhandled and beat up. You haven't. Now, I do want to point out that one of my distinguished and one of our distinguished people here on Unafraid Show, Bama fans, had the audacity to hop in the comments of the Alabama versus Florida State preview and say this. I'm not going to read you the whole thing because it is quite long, but here is where we are at. Here is what the man said. Actually, let me show it to you. That way you can see it for yourself. Okay. Because this was absolutely, I felt it. I was like, okay, cool. Alabama fans, this is how y'all want to play. Okay, cool. So here is what he said. I appreciate you putting it on the line. Alabama fans typically make or break college football YouTube channels. So you'll either be the only person on here that gets it right, or you'll expose yourself and any goodwill Alabama fans have for this channel. So with that being said, Alabama fans, I hope that you are learning that your boy is always Wrighster, never wrong. Always Wrighster around here on on this channel. And I'm gonna tell it like it is, even when a lot of times a lot of people want to play it safe. But I saw this. I predicted in my bold predictions that Alabama would miss the college football playoff again this year. And it is not because Kalen DeBoer is a terrible coach or anything like that, because he's a really good coach. The problem is that getting adjusted to SEC football what is a lot easier said than done. There is a culture difference. There is a all sorts of things different than what he was dealing with in the Pac 12. Everything from recruiting, evaluation, how you train your players, the mentality, everything in between. And he has not found that balance yet. And he has also not found the thing that he had with Michael Penix in Washington, which is an elite quarterback. And what he had with Jake Hayner at Fresno State, which is an elite quarterback. And Ty Simpson, who has waited his turn, which we've heard like as many times as we heard Ryan Williams, 17 years old last year. That's how many times that we heard Ty Simpson waited his turn at Alabama. Well, this was not the performance that Alabama fans were looking for or hoping for out of Ty Simpson. 23 for 43 for 254 and 2 touchdowns. And Paul Feinbaum show is going to be nuts tomorrow. And Alabama lost its first opener. Well, its opener for the first time since 2001 versus UCLA. That's how long it has been. And now Alabama is now 4-5 against Power Four opponents dating back to the Vandy game last year. And they've been held to 17 points or less in the last 4 losses. That is alarming. But the problem is that Alabama fans because I go on the message boards, I see them clamoring and screaming for Nick Saban to come back, for Kalen DeBoer to get fired. Listen, that is not going to happen. Kalen DeBoer is not going to be fired. The only way Kalen DeBoer leaves Alabama this year is if he chooses to leave Alabama this year and goes to go take another. That is the only way, because we're looking at $70+ million of buyout. There is a 0% chance that that happens. So, Alabama fans, a good word of advice for you from J. Cole, the rapper: love yours. Kalen DeBoer is the coach that you got right now. You better love him up, support him, because he is who you got. You can't get rid of him. And you probably shouldn't even be trying to get rid of him. Look at the recruiting class that you have put together so far of elite 5-star talents. I would trust long term that Kalen DeBoer will figure this out. But the problem is, you have followed Nick Saban, you have followed the GOAT. That is a problem. So, this Alabama team looks like a 3-4 loss team, and that's unfortunate for them. Now, on the Florida State side, and I hate to be, because you come here for the truth. I am sorry, Florida State fans, that I have to be the bearer of bad news, but this is bad news it's good news for Florida State in that they're much better than the 2-10 that they put up last year. But the bad news for Florida State is This is not an elite football team. This is not the 13-0 team. I know that you beat Alabama and you are feeling real great about yourself right now, but this is not a team that is going to go to the college football playoff. I'm sorry. Sorry. It pains me to say it. I was happy to be right about the game, and Mike Norvell did a great job getting his team ready. However, 19 for 14 for 152 yards out of Thomas Castellanos, it's not going to cut it. I know it was raining for part of the game. And yes, 46 carries for 236 yards and 4 touchdowns. That works every single week at 5 yards a carry. That works. But the issue is, are you going to be able to not throw the ball at a very high level all season? No, I do not believe so, because they got, yes, it'll be fine versus East Texas A&M and Kent State, but as you get to the Miamis, the Pitts, the Clemsons, and Virginia Techs of the world, you're going to have to throw that pill, and we are going to see what happens there. All right, now let's get on to the game that everybody was so excited about coming into this season, and that is Texas at Ohio State. Now, I told everybody, and this was a 14-7 game. This game went exactly how I thought it would in terms of an Ohio State win. Now, I did expect more offense from both sides of this game because the truth is, neither team executed at a high level. And this is the difference between the NFL that has a preseason and college football where you have to work out your kinks because all of the things are not going to work together. Ohio State breaking in a new quarterback, Julian Sayin, breaking in a new offensive coordinator in Brian Hartline, breaking in a new defensive coordinator with Matt Patricia. All of that put together, plus the hangover from winning a national championship, that was going to be hard for them. But you know what? They managed it extremely well. And this game was a fun game to watch. But I will say, neither one of these teams, Ohio State or Texas, are the version of themselves that they are going to be in a month. They're not. There is a 0% chance that Arch Manning plays as bad as he did. Now, will he turn out to be the generational talent that all these people said? We shall see. And I told y'all to pump the brakes on this a while ago because when you go back to Arch Manning's high school career, he's never been playing high level football. He hasn't. He hasn't been here for all the smoke. And we did what we do in sports all the time. And we do it in sports, we do it in the media, we do it with artists, we do it with anybody. Anybody that shows a tremendous amount of talent. I want y'all to peep this. We build them up so high, so fast, just to come back later and be like, hiya, and slice them on down. That's the good old American way. We build you up, we slice you down. And this is exactly what's happening to Arch Manning. Because for the last 6 months, it has been Arch Manning mania. Oh, he's the greatest thing. He's the first overall pick and all of this. And you're like, slow down. Slow the hell down. But the moment was too big for Arch Manning. It was, if we're being honest. He got rattled. His footwork was bad. His mechanics were bad. All of it. He did not look good. But the good news is it's the first game because he didn't do Elite 11, rivals, or any other of these things against other competition. And now he is in the smoke. He has no choice, but he is talented. And when you look at that, and everybody's going to point to the wow throw at the end of the game. But I point to that throw that he made on the sideline in the fourth quarter on that last drive. And I'm like, wow, that was a special throw. But the thing that I am concerned about is the throw right before that, where he threw the ball at a guy's feet on a little 5-yard stick route. And then the last two throws before the last throw, before he was getting sacked and had to completion, two horrible misses, had no pressure on him, and he was like seeing ghosts because he's backing up on the little shallow cross route and throwing it, and you're like, where are you going? The moment was too big for Arch. But that does not mean that the moment will continuously be too big for Arch. These are things that you learn by playing in more and more high leverage situations. No, this could be, if we're being honest, this could be Kobe's 3 air ball situation versus Utah in the playoffs. That's what we may be watching with Arch Manning. That game could have been the 3 air ball game because it was that damn bad. Now, on the other side of it, you had Julian Sand, freshman quarterback as well, getting a chance to play. And people wondered, oh, is Julian saying, hey, we're just going to be able to handle it and this and this. I saw this kid play in high school, and he is exactly who he is. This is the reason why there was no training wheels on him from Brian Harsin, but there was definitely room for improvement from him and Brian Harsin. I thought the scheme and execution by the entire offense of Ohio State was bad because they got outgained by Texas in the game by like 100 yards. But Julian Sand, the kid in high school, was consistent. He was accurate, made really good decisions. What did he do in the game? Consistent, accurate, and made good decisions. Is he going to look like Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson out there? Nope. Does he have an arm like Patrick Mahomes? Nope. Does he have any distinct special trait that you're going to be like, yo, that's it right there? Oh my God. They just gets coaches and fans excited? Nope. None of that at all. But you know what he does have? Good decision making, accuracy, and consistency. It's amazing how those things work together. But the last thing that we have to talk about in this game, and I don't really want to talk about it. Actually, I do because it's hilarious. Is we got to talk about this. We got to talk about Nipplegate. What is this, Ryan Day? What is this? Because, okay, I'm a man who has some chest hair, shave it down, but sometimes get a little B2B around the nipple, and it can look like you might have a little nipple ring going on there. So here's the question: is Ryan Day a kink machine with with the nipple, or this feels like a lost bet? I have no intel on this one like I do on most other things. I believe this is just my own personal thought. This stems from the loss to Michigan. This feels like if we lose to Michigan again, I'll pierce my nipple. And then we ended up there. That's just what I think. I could be wrong, but I mean, what else makes sense? All right. All right, next game up. We got to talk about LSU versus Clemson. Now, I for one, I believed that Clemson was going to win the national championship. I fully believe that. And honestly, I still am going to stand on business with that one. But this 17-10 loss to LSU made me a little bit concerned. Made me concerned for 2 reasons. Number 1, Clemson's offensive line did not do a good job. Now, they are rebuilding that offensive line from last year. So that is a little bit concerning when you're getting that much pressure on your quarterback, who I think is fantastic, and Mr. Cade Klubnik. And then the second thing about the O-line that made me scared is that they could not run the football. That was highly alarming. 32 rushing yards on 20 carries? What? What? That ain't going to cut it. That is not going to cut it in high leverage football. It's not. That is not a recipe for winning a national championship. That ain't a recipe for, unless you are running, just a spread offense, a fun and gun, no running the football, and that don't work either. But I will tell you, so yes, I am concerned about Clemson right now, 100%. But it is week 1. You have the biggest growth of a team between week 1 and week 2. Now, you had, now on the other hand, LSU. When LSU came out in them 1-0 t-shirts, so if you don't know, the whole team came out in shirts that said 1-0. I thought they were doomed. I was like, come on, man, don't do that. Don't do that. But you know what? They came out and they showed up and they got a W. That's all that matters. It don't have to be the prettiest thing in the world, but it is a W. And Brian Kelly has the monkey off of his back because he was 0-3 in season opening games at LSU. And remember, he said, judge me in year 3. Well, this is year 4. Let's see what you got. And the first promising sign is that his highest paid defensive coordinator in the country, Mr. Blake Baker, he looks like the dividends are starting to pay off between that and them transfer portal additions because LSU's front four, oh, they own the line of scrimmage. They owned every inch of grass on that line of scrimmage and they dominated. And you got to give Garrett Nussmeier all sorts of credit, their quarterback, because he closed the game like a vet. 134 of his 230 passing yards, they came after halftime. And then it capped it off with the 8-yard go-ahead touchdown to Trey Des Green. It was really, really good. It was really, really good. So that was exciting. Caden Durham, the running back for LSU, he showed some special things, some tackle breaking, some wiggle, everything else. So this LSU team, they got a shot. And with the way that Alabama looked in week 1, now Alabama, yes, they can improve too, but they not going to improve to a dominant SEC team. Texas, they look vulnerable as well. LSU's the best team in the conference right now after 1 week of football. Them, because they're the only teams that played high leverage opponents, so you can't really give them. I mean, you Auburn as well, but you can't really say, "Oh my God, Texas A&M, they looked amazing. Let's talk about them." No, they didn't play anybody that could test them to that level. Wow. Well, George, how about your guy? How about your guy, Cade Klubnik? George, well, he finished the day 19 for 38 for 230, no touchdowns and a pick. It was hard. I mean, if we're being honest, lack of protection, no run game. They were inconsistently in third and long situations, and you can't win football games consistently in third and long situations. It's just not. They finished 3 for 13 on third down. That ain't good enough. Not even a little bit. Now, LSU wasn't great at 4 for 11, but 3 for 13, that is how you lose football games. And it didn't help that they lost their wide receiver, Antonio Williams, in the first quarter. But I don't think that was going to be the difference in the game because they couldn't protect and they couldn't run the football. I will say the future is bright for LSU, especially after winning that first game. I feel much better about my college football playoff prediction when it comes to LSU. Now, Clemson, on the other hand, they get the opportunity to go through the ACC, which is not a weak conference, like some of y'all be saying. It is also a conference that doesn't have other top 10 caliber teams in it right now. Now, we will see what Miami ends up doing versus Notre Dame, because that game is on right now. Well, actually, it'll be starting in a sec. So we will see what goes on there. All right. Now, let's go to my 5 best and my 5 worst teams of week 1 in college football. The 5 best and the 5 worst teams of week 1. So my 5 best teams of week 1. First team was Ohio State. And you might be like, George, how could a 14-7 win when you got outgained be one of the best teams of the week? Because you got a win in an opening game versus one of the better teams in college football. That counts and that equates as a really good week. When you had so many teams playing warm-up games and your warm-up game was jumping straight into the boiling pot of water, that is how you determine a good week. Finding a way to win even when you are not at your best. The next team up, 5 best teams of the week. The Utah Utes. 43-10. They went out to Los Angeles and opened up a can of whoop ass on the UCLA Bruins. Oh, it was bad. And we knew that this Utah offensive line was going to be good coming into this season, but they were spectacular. Spec-damn-tacular. They and Dampier, the quarterback, man, you can't tackle this dude in a phone booth. UCLA was running around like chickens with their head cuts off. They couldn't tackle him. It was embarrassing. And it reminded me of Cam Ward at Washington State, where they're sending everybody downfield. Utah was playing hurry up football. It was incredible. We'll talk more about that game in a minute. But we had Florida State. It is obvious why they were one of the 5 best teams of week 1 in college football. They hosted Alabama and they talked all the trash in the world and they backed it up. When you talk trash and after a 2-10 season, and you go and back it up against people's national championship team prediction, you get the love right there. You get the love right there. The next team up that we got to give some love to, we got to give love to LSU. They came out and got a win. They came out and got a huge win versus Clemson on the road. There's nothing more to say because everybody has been questioning Brian Kelly. They've been questioning this team. They've been questioning how they start. And they're like, nah, fam. We got this. We think that this is the year. Now, I had to be talked into LSU in my top, as the number 2 team in the SEC because they hadn't shown a lick of defense. But as I dug into that transfer portal, as I dug into talking to people there and what they were doing and how they looked in the offseason, talking to one of their coaches who was a good friend of mine, I was like, okay, all right, we gonna see. Well, we saw and we liked. And the last team that we got to give some credit to, got to give some credit to the Auburn Tigers. They went out and won against Baylor. This was a game that would have been easy to lose. Now their pass defense needs some damn help. Sawyer Robinson threw for like 430, 416, 430, something like that. It was a crazy amount of yards against them. And so that needs to get fixed. But Hugh Freeze got criticized this offseason for golfing too much. He got criticized for the first down play caller, second down play caller, third down play caller. Now, regardless of whether you think that's just posturing for his friends with contracts and all of that stuff, whatever it is, that still is a questionable move. But they did it. They deserve credit. Now, my 5 worst performances of week 1 in college football. Oh, we got to give it to UCLA. That was atrocious. 43-10 versus Utah. They couldn't tackle. And granted, Utah's offensive line is really good. They're going to push you around and it's going to be tough. However, even when they had an opportunity to make tackles, they were getting drugged. Like people on backs and the back still going 2, 3, 4 more yards after that. That is when it is either mentality, it is weight room, or it is athlete. Those are your options. Mentality, weight room, or athlete. So Deshaun Foster is going to have to figure out which one of those it is. Now, granted, I will tell you this. Utah may be an elite football team, which leads me to believe that UCLA may be okay and may end up where exactly I predicted them in the Big Ten because they don't have to play, an elite football team 11 more times. Next worst performance of the week. We got the Alabama Crimson Tide. Oh, after all of that talk, oh yeah, we gonna show Florida State on the field that they're not really about that life. They didn't mean to talk all that trash. Well, yes, they did. The next team up, we have Wake Forest. Wake Forest, 10-9 versus Kennesaw State. And I know that Jake Dickert is just taking over there, so there is no knock on him. There's no shame there. But when you win 10-9 versus Kennesaw State, that is an alarming factor. That is an alarming factor, especially when it's not like you turn the ball over all over the place and everything else. That's not good. That is highly concerning for Wake Forest. But I'm going to give Jake Dickert time to grow and be ready to grow this program. Next team up is Texas. Texas. Oh, worst performance of the week. Arch Manning was bad. Sark was bad calling plays. It was a training wheels game. I don't know what happened. It was like it was like they were standing on the sun. Everything was too hot. But Sark has proven he's a really good coach, really good play caller, really good schemer. Do I expect this sort of behavior to continue? No. But for week one, you deserve to be on the list. And the last team of the 5 worst performances of the week, it is a team that I could not understand why anybody was picking them to go to the college football playoff, and that is Boise State. I know that Boise State is a really good program, but they have not been where they have needed to be this season roster-wise. They lost Ashton Jeanty, the best back in the country. Their quarterback, Maddox, he's a guy. I mean, he's a dude. He's a quarterback. He's just not a special player. And in their 34-7 loss to South Florida, it did not look well. The future does not look bright for them this season. It is going to be a rough one. I'm just letting you know that right now for Boise State. It is going to be rough to score points. And even though the Mountain West is not doesn't appear with UNLV looking like they have some struggles, it doesn't look like it's going to be as tough as it was last year, but still, this is highly concerning. And the last thing on the 5 best and 5 worst performances on the week is that people were saying that they were concerned about Kansas State. They were like, oh my God, Dublin was a bad idea. See, look at their result versus North Dakota, 38-35. See, Dublin was a terrible idea. Well, you know who was fine? Iowa State. You know what was fine? 2-0 Iowa State. They beat Kansas State over there in Dublin, Ireland, and then came back and were able to get refocused against an inferior opponent, and they blew their doors off. So this is highly concerning for Kansas State. You lose to Iowa State, and then you follow that up with this. This was not the type of performance, and it's got people questioning their quarterback, Avery Johnson. And now I'm not going to get into the whole, is he a quarterback? Is he this? Is he that? Because he went 28 for 43 for 318 and 3 touchdowns. But the question is, how the hell did you give up 35 points to North Dakota? That's another story. All right. Now we got to get on to this. I want to talk about I gave you the Utah versus UCLA, but I cannot stress enough that Utah is a legit college football contender. And we're not talking about a team that can just show up. We are talking about a team that can go to the college football playoff and win a game. You can book it. You can book it. All right. Next game up, Tennessee versus Syracuse, 45-26. This game made me question my preseason evaluation of Tennessee because they looked much better than I thought. Now, in this game, I did pick Tennessee to win, and they won, and they dominated. But I love the fight I saw from Syracuse, from Fran Brown's team. This game was played in a neutral site down there in Atlanta. But this defense, Syracuse's defense got circles ran around them. Circles. They got blitzed in the beginning, 17-0 to start, but then Syracuse battled. And that's what you want to see. Because this team that Fran Brown has is not as good as it was last year with Syracuse. So what you would like to see out of them is grit, fight, staying competitive, win 7 to 8 games, and then the following year they should be better. You can book it. Now the battle between Nico Iamaleava over there at UCLA and Tennessee with Joey Aguilar, because remember they essentially swapped quarterbacks. Nico struggled in his debut, partly because he's running a totally different system than what he ran at UCLA. It is a more true, like, development quarterback play that will translate to the National Football League. And it takes more than just 20 fall camp practices and a lot of film work to get you to where you have mastered the offense. Nico showed that he was dynamic running the football, that he could complete passes. He wasn't as accurate as you would like, but there's something there. Now, on the Joey Aguilar side, oh man, now Tennessee's offense is significantly easier. It is point and click, and this is one of the things and one of the reasons why NFL people have said that Josh Heupel's offense does not translate to the quarterbacks going to the NFL, and it doesn't translate to the wideouts being able to run the full route tree because they're standing next to the sideline all the time. But with that being said, as far as a college quarterback and a college team and a college offense, this is exactly how you get Joey Aguilar to go 16 for 28 for 247 and 3 touchdowns and no picks and push the ball vertically. Because Josh Heupel's offense, 495 yards, 247 247 rushing, 247 passing, 6.4 yards per carry on the ground, 7 for 12 on third down. This was a blitz. So you are going to be happy if you are a Tennessee fan. However, the road is going to get tougher. It is going to get tougher. And this defense, which was lights out and didn't allow more than 20 points last year, but until the end of the season, well, they got a 26-point streak started right now. Now I want to talk about as well Dylan Raiola, because Cincinnati played Syracuse. Oh, Cincinnati played Nebraska this week. And so for all the Nebraska fans, and mind you, this was a 20-17 game. What was the game played on Thursday or Friday? And it was played in Kansas City, so the Chiefs were there. You had Patrick Mahomes there in the suite. The Kelsey brothers were down on the sideline because they went to Cincinnati. And all of the talk about Dylan Raiola has been, oh, Patrick Mahomes, Patrick Mahomes, Patrick Mahomes. And this is not a negative on the kid, because he has arm talent. He clearly can process offense and process and make quick decisions. He threw for 243, 2 touchdowns, didn't throw any interceptions. The issue is that we need to stop with the Patrick Mahomes comparisons. These guys couldn't be further. This is like comparing when people saw Christian McCaffrey coming out in the draft and they were comparing him to Stanford's previous running back in Toby Gerhart just because they're both white. Just because Dylan Raiola and Patrick Mahomes had the same hairstyle for a while, Raiola copies every mannerism and pregame and all of that stuff. They are not the same. They are the same until you watch them play football. Two completely different football players. And I am still highly concerned about Dylan Raiola's passing motion. But the Huskers are 1-0 in a 20-17 game. And the issue more is that this Huskers defense only gave up 69 yards passing, but they did give up 202 yards rushing. 100 of it basically to the quarterback, Brendan Sorsby. But you only won by 3 points. And it was a dicey win because Cincinnati had the ball at the end of the game, and Sorsby threw the ball to nobody. Well, he threw the ball to Nebraska. So that is highly concerning. So all of the people that picked Nebraska to go to, like Josh Pate, my guy, who picked Nebraska to go to the college football playoff, you might as well do this to that prediction. Ball it up and throw it in the trash because that ain't happening. After that football game, I'm letting you know it. So you might as well pick somebody else to go. Next game up. Auburn versus Baylor. Now, this is one in my college football picks against the spread. This is the game that I 100% believed that Baylor was going to win this game. I just didn't. There's been so much negative talk about Auburn, and I was doubting them coming into this season. I got to apologize. Got to apologize because I would tell you guys all the time, don't listen to the noise. Don't listen to the noise. There are so many people that are going to be talking about college football. They are repeating things and all that stuff. And I fell victim here when it came to Auburn. But in the preview of the game, I did talk about how talented Auburn's roster is. They are more talented than Baylor, and they played decent football. But the issue is that there was so much talk about them, and I fell victim to it looking at the line. So I apologize. I will be better this week. This time, Wrighster was wrong. Now, I will say, Auburn's nonsense with the play caller situation, whoever was calling plays, it worked out in the run game because Jackson Arnold, their starting quarterback who was at Oklahoma last year, his stat line looked exactly like it did at Oklahoma last year. This is apparently who the kid is. 16 for 137 and 2 touchdowns rushing. 11 for 17 for 108, no touchdowns and no picks. This is who Jackson Arnold is. And this is how Auburn is going to have to win football games. They are going to be a quarterback. He threw the ball only one more time than he ran it. That is something to note about watching Auburn play football. Do not expect vertical passing attack no matter how good their weapons are on a consistent basis. Expect, the same numbers that you expect out of Thomas Castellanos at Florida State. Expect there to be a big balance between the run passing yards and the the run yards and the pass yards. Expect this. Do not expect against good football teams that you are going to see a 300-yard game passing out of Jackson Arnold, because that's probably not going to happen. They are going to play to his strengths, clearly. They ran the ball 51 times. This is who Hugh Freeze has looked at his roster and said, this is the best way to win. So expect Auburn, when you watch them play, heavy run, very little pass, unless they get down and they have to. And at that point in time, you're going to see some interceptions. So Auburn's key to victory this season, stay ahead of the sticks and stay ahead in the game. Because if you don't, you are going to have a problem. Now, because their pass defense was garbage this game. Absolutely garbage. If it wasn't for some drops and some stalls, some penalties and all of that, the 27 for 48 for 419 and 3 touchdowns that Sawyer Robinson and Baylor threw for, it would have been worse. It would have been worse. And I know that on the Baylor side, Damari Alston and Jeremiah Cobb running the football were great. But Baylor was pushing the issue. They were 3 for 6 on fourth downs. They had 2 touchdowns out of it. But 2 of them, the fourth down failures actually turned into 10 Auburn points, which was really the difference in the game. So, yes, Auburn's defense stepped up twice on on fourth down when they needed it. But this is a team that gave up a ton of yards on the back end. 419 yards. That ain't gonna cut it, fam. I'm gonna let you know that right now. And this is something now. I will say that I totally forgot, and I didn't want to forget to talk about this game. This was the hot seat Olympics game. You had Hugh Freeze, who was on the hot seat coming into the season, Dave Aranda, who was on the hot seat coming into last season. Aranda survived with a very good offense, but he's a defensive guy. He has to get this Baylor defense together because I'm telling you, the dude did not forget how to be a great defensive coach. Something's going wrong in the process. Because there's no way that you flip from being a dramatically great defense and a terrible offense, flipping the other way, and you forget how to do the defense. Come on, Dave Aranda. Let's get to it, man. Another game that was very anticipated this week and people were super excited about it that turned out to be a good football game down to the end. It was Georgia Tech versus Colorado, and it went exactly like we thought it was. It was a ground and pound clinic because the Yellow Jackets, them Georgia Tech fellas, they mauled them up front. 320 rushing yards, 6.8 yards per attempt. 463 total yards to 305. And Haynes King, their quarterback, was the difference. 156 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. But here is the thing that concerns me about Georgia Tech. You are using Haynes King as a battering ram. He missed multiple games last season with a shoulder injury and then missed parts of others because of a shoulder injury. And week 1, you throw the ball one more time than you ran it. 19 carries for Haynes King, which is more than any single running back after. You had Jamal Haynes, who had 16 carries. Malachi Hosley had 7. Eric Rivers, Rutherford, Stockton all had 2 or 1. Haynes King had 19. Your quarterback is not going to stay healthy, Brent Key. I know that you're an offensive line guy. It is physicality, and that is great. You are doing phenomenal with Georgia Tech there. The issue is, if you want to have a special season, Haynes King has to be healthy. And if you want Haynes King healthy, you cannot run him 19 times per game because some of them go out of bounds, but that's at least 15 hits that he's taking on run plays, and then he's going to get hit some on pass plays. How do you think that that's going to work? He will be uh, on the mend before you know it. Now on the Colorado side, I told you that Colorado's defense would be excuse me. I told you Colorado's offense would be significantly more balanced and better overall than last year in terms of the ability to run the football. They ran the ball 31 times for 146 and a touchdown because I knew that he didn't bring Marshall Faulk in there for them not to run the football. So, congratulations there, Colorado. You ran the football. They ran the ball 31 times, threw the ball 29 times. That is a recipe for success for them. The issue is their quarterback, Kaidon Salter. 17 for 28, 156 and a touchdown. And it's not that he is devoid of talent because he is not. He did a really good job at Liberty. However, if you are going to be struggling and building an identity as a head coach, I'm probably going to go with the young guy, with Julian Juju Lewis. Now, granted, I've not been at practice, so he may not be ready yet, but this was not good. It wasn't good at all. And in terms of missed throws and all of that, I believe in what Deion is doing because he's building an offensive line that can run the football. Now, they gave up 320 yards rushing after last year being much improved, stopping the run last year. But I also believe that few teams are going to be able to run the football as well on the season as Georgia Tech is. So I'm not going to panic. When Colorado faces Delaware next week or Houston, Wyoming, BYU, TCU, None of them are going to be able to run the ball like that until they get to Iowa State and Utah, which are games that they are probably going to lose unless they, figure something else out on the offense. So you could be looking at an 8-4, 7-5 season, which ain't bad considering the situations. The only issue I have though, and I know that people who support Deion and all that stuff go, oh, you're this, you're that. I like Deion. I root for Colorado to win. However, his clock management at the end of the game, keeping them 2 timeouts and ending up having to settle for a Hail Mary was terrible clock management. And the worst part about it was that he tried to defend it because it was like 30 some seconds left. They had 2 timeouts. And instead of calling a timeout there, he kept the timeouts, let the time run down to try to run another play. It was a bad deal. Should have called timeout. And when you screw up, you got to admit it. You have to. And that is the bottom line. Because I would tell Deion that to his face. But that doesn't mean that you don't like a guy. All coaches have made boneheaded decisions or didn't do something right. Even the great ones. Bill Belichick has made some bonehead decisions. But you know what? You're a great coach. You usually make more great decisions than you do bonehead decisions. So I'm going to stick with that with Deion in Colorado. But the last thing up, it is fast break time. It is fast break time here on the Unafraid Show. Here on George Wrighster's College Football Podcast. Fast break time where I'm going to talk to you and tell you all the games that you did not watch and the stuff that you need to watch for. But these teams, you didn't watch it, but I did. You guys, make sure that you guys swipe up, like, subscribe, get notifications, and tell a friend about the show. And make sure that you share. And come back because we got great stuff all week. Okay, so the game that you didn't watch, Oregon versus Montana State, top 10 team, 59-13. This was a complete and domination, and the Ducks look special, particularly on defense. Their quarterback, Dante Moore, the offense, they looked efficient, well-oiled machine. They were able to run the football. Defense was disruptive with Amari Washington, DJ Uiagalelei, Mateo Uiagalelei, and their young defensive backs, in Finney and Efi and the Kingston Lopa and the rest of the crew. They got something there. They do. And they're going to play against an Oklahoma State team this week that just lost their quarterback. So if they are able to dominate Oklahoma State this week, then they play Oregon State. And then they have another game before they play Penn State. They are going to be warmed up before they play Penn State. So that's exciting. They got their playmakers did well. Decorian Moore blocking his ass off. Kenyon Sadiq blocking his ass off, catching touchdowns. They did all the things that they needed to do and what you expect out of a game against Montana State, who is ranked number 1 in the FCS. Think about that. Other teams are struggling against the FCS teams. They took the number 1 FCS team and slapped them around, called them Susan. That's a Blank Man reference if you didn't know. Penn State versus Nevada, 46-11. Now, everybody knows if you've been watching this channel what I think about Drew Aller. In this game, 22 for 26 for 217 and a touchdown. The team had 438 total yards, plus 3 turnover margin. And Penn State did not punt one single solitary time. Their running backs, Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen, were really good. And the wide receivers that they brought over in the portal, Kyron Hudson and Trevor Pena, they looked like a very good 1-2 punch. Both had over 6 catches. Hudson had 6 for 89 and a tub. Pena had 7 for 74. I mean, they went games last year or in stretches where the wide receivers didn't catch balls. So part of this is their offensive coordinator, Andy Kotnicki, doing a good job of scheming things up. But when you don't punt, this is good. In their first 3 games against Nevada, who's a terrible football team, really being honest, I did like some things that their quarterback, Chuba Purdy, did. FIU and Villanova, then they have a bye, then they play Oregon. Question is, will they be warmed up enough to play Oregon, who started out with Montana State, plays Oklahoma State, and then plays Oregon State, which is a tougher slate. And then they play, Oregon plays another game as well. So they may be a little more warmed up. New Mexico versus Michigan, 34-17. This concerned me a little bit. The game is a little bit too close. Now, New Mexico's a, pretty good program. Lower tier. Well, I won't even say, excuse me, not lower tier. They are New Mexico is a, we're talking about Mountain West type football. And they're good in that realm. Like they are a team. If you play around, they can beat you. But all eyes were on the 5-star Mr. Bryce Underwood, who is Michigan's starting quarterback. Remember, he came out and said, listen, freshmen ain't usually great, but but they ain't seen one like me. 21 for 31, 251, and a touchdown. Kid was on schedule. He was accurate, did not panic. Big in your first game, not having any of those red flag moments, that's good. Justice Hayes for Michigan. Running back, 159, 3 tubs, really good. Really good. And the biggest thing that you want to note from this game was that there was Jay Sean Barham, linebacker. He got ejected in the third quarter. So the question is, will he be available for the Oklahoma game? Because they are appealing it, which they probably won't win. Next game up. Yeah, Texas A&M versus UTSA. Marcel Reed looked good. 289 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, and he looks like he has a really good rapport with the wide receiver Casey Concepcion. And he had a TD catch as well. Punt return, touchdown. Mario Craver, excuse me. He looked really good for 122 yards and 2 touchdowns as well. And if Marcel Reed can pass the ball at a high level, which he did not do last year, he was competent last year. If he can take that step up to a high level passer, oh, Lord have mercy on their schedule. But it may have come at a cost because this Aggie running game, which was great last year, Reed led the team this week with 39 yards rushing. And the last game that you did not watch is Georgia versus Marshall, 45-7. The question was Georgia able to figure out how to run the ball again after not being able to run it last year? Well, the answer versus Marshall was a resounding yes. And I know Marshall has a new quarterback. They got all of that stuff. A new head coach and all that other stuff. But this is where we are at. Last thing, Iowa State wins. Texas Tech wins. There was nothing to be gained in either of those games based upon the competition. But but Iowa State did play South Dakota. BYU, there's nothing to talk about there. But we are looking forward to this TCU North Carolina game, which was my lock of the week this week. North Carolina plus 3.5. And you guys, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your energy here on the George Wrighster College Football Podcast. Make sure you share, like up, subscribe, tell a friend about the show. Breakdowns coming this week. The top 25 will be out as well. Peace out. Catch you guys later.